as our main guest the Dr. Satoru Nagao, that is a fellow at Hudson Institute based in Tokyo, Japan. From December 2017 through November 2020, was a visiting fellow at the Hudson Institute based in Washington, D.C. And his primary research area is U.S. Japan-India security cooperation. He was awarded at his Ph.D. at Gakushuin University in 2011 for his thesis, India's military strategy. And his main focus is about Asia and all the geopolitical situation in that field. So thank you, Satoru, to accept our invitation. I will give you directly the stand for all the people that is watching online now or later after the live. If you have any question for us, just put it in the comments and we will collect and we will answer after the streams or in the comments. Thank you so much for being here, and I will give you the stand.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much for giving a chance to make a presentation in this place. It is a great honor for me, and I want to show my best. The title of my presentation is Japan and the Quad. What do we need it? So why do we need it? This is my presentation, and maybe it's audience of this video have already know or already hear what is the Quad, the cooperation of U.S., Australia, India, and Japan. But indeed, Japan was the pioneer of this idea. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's speech to the Indian Parliament in 2007, entitled Conference of Two Seas, that address did not use the word Indo-Pacific or Quad exactly, but when we check the contents, yes, idea of the Indo-Pacific and the Quad both are included. That's why this was the first address as the official status to explain the idea of the Quad. So today I want to explain why does the Japan need a Quad? Especially the three questions I'm focusing on. What is the Quad significance for Japan? Why was the Quad formed? And how does the Quad work? This kind of the question I want to explain. So first question, what is the Quad significance for Japan? Japan was a pioneer. Why Japan suggested? In this first and most important reason, most important or not, maybe after the, you can decide after you hear these three. But anyway, the rapid economic development, both the Pacific side and the Indian Ocean side, are increasingly emerging as an influential region in the world politics. You can remember what is the center of the world politics. In the World War I, World War II, you can remember if something has happened in Europe, Europe is the center of the world politics. That's why this is the World War. Impact of the war spread to the world. But now, in the global economy, this Pacific region and the Indian Ocean region is also emerging as an influential region. Of course, Europe is very important, still very important, but at the same time, if something happens in the Indo-Pacific, Pacific side, Indian Ocean region, the impact will spread to the world. That's why we need concept to including these new emerging regions. That's why Indo-Pacific, but Indo-Pacific is under threat. That is the second reason. What kind of threat? Indo-Pacific should not be the China-dominated region. China is rising. China's attitude is changing to be arrogant. So that's why country in the Indo-Pacific is worrying China's expanding influence. In this case, Quad is very important. Quad is a group of the country, influential country, U.S, Australia, India, and Japan. This means that all of the influential country in the Indo-Pacific, except China, making the one group, which is Quad. So Quad is a group to deal with China. Quad is a group to as a counterbalance of China in the Indo-Pacific. That's why Quad is very important. And in this case, which country is the most important? Indeed, India. Why? You can see, generally, traditionally, the people use the word Asia-Pacific since 1980s. Asia-Pacific do not include Indian Ocean region, especially India. And Quad, when we use the Quad, yes, Japan and Australia are former US ally, former US ally. This means that India is only newcomer. If the Japan and Australia cooperate with the United States, there are plenty of chances. But India do not have chances. So, because Japan want to include India as a group of countries, that's why Japan suggests Quad. So Quad, both Quad and Indo-Pacific, indeed, most important country is India. How to include India is the purpose. That's why when the Quad Indo-Pacific, the Japanese people start to talk, especially Shinzo Abe start to talk, such kind of scene we can see. This is a picture, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India hug with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. So this is Quad and Indo-Pacific. Indeed, Japan tried to cooperate with India. But why? Why Japan need this kind of Quad and Indo-Pacific? I have already pointed out the threat of China, rising influence of China. Why was the Quad formed? This is related with China's activities. China has escalated their activities around Japan, around Taiwan, in this region. Look at this map. The red route. This is the route China's naval ship are using. Yes, circling around Japan. Circling around Taiwan. Look at this. China tried to expand their activity, area of activity, from first island chain to the second island chain, which is the defense line of China. China want to defend the coastline, yes, but to defend their coastline, they try to push other countries. Japan suffer such kind of China's activities. Taiwan suffer such kind of activities. Japan needs a strategy to deal with. That's why Japan tried to cooperate with other countries. Indeed, this is not only the area China has escalated their activities. This is a number China's official ships the activity around the Senkaku Island of Japan in the East China Sea. In 2011, number was only 12, but 2012 drastically increased, and after that, continue to increase. In 2019, it reached 1,000. So China escalates the situation, but Japan is not a country who suffered China's such kind of activities. This is the number of the India-China border. Look at this. 2011, 213, but 2019, 663 times. China's troops enter the Indian side of the border. So I overlap two figures, 1 and 2. Look at this. Same move. In 2012, China increased activity. 2019, they increased activity. Because China has a reason. Which reason, I do not know. But they increase their military activity, not only against Japan, but also against India. there's a high possibility that they have escalate their activity in the South China Sea or Taiwan Strait or other area at the same time. But because of the map is a little complicated in the South China Sea, it is not easy to count. But when we check the East China Sea and India-China border area, it is clear China has increased their activity. That's why Japan needs a Quad. So if Japan cooperate with other three countries, what happened? How to deal with China? How does the Quad work? Indeed, China's territorial expansion has three features. That's why Quad can work. Firstly, they lack of respect of the international law. Lack of respect? Why? For example, in the East China Sea, before the 1970s, China hasn't claimed the Senkaku Island as their territory because there was no reason. There was no legitimate reason. But in 1970s, they find the potential existence of the natural resources in the East China Sea. And they identify the strategic location. If the China takes the Senkaku Island, they can make the strong pressure towards Taipei. So China start to claim Senkaku Island as their territory. So legally, such kind of claim is baseless because before 1970s, they haven't claimed. Suddenly, they start to claim. Secondly, expansion of the territorial claim where there are the power vacuum. I should explain by using this map. This is a map published from the Japan Ministry of Defense. When we check the China's activity in South China Sea, we can find one pattern. In 1950s, when France withdrew from Indochina Peninsula, China occupied half of the Paracel Island. In 1970s, when the U.S. troops withdrew from Vietnam, China take another half of the Paracel Island. 1980s, when Soviet troops withdrew from Vietnam, China takes 6 features of the Spratly Island. And in 1990s, when U.S. troops withdraw from Philippines, China take Mischief Reef. So military balance has changed and the power vacuum has appeared. In this case, China tried to steal it. That is China's pattern. So if the countries need to deal with China's territorial expansion, maintaining military balance is the key. Do not create the power vacuum. View from this, Quad, I will explain later this is, but this is the pattern. When they find the power vacuum, they try to take it. They steal it. Third feature is attempts at economic dominance or as a non-military method to expand influence abroad are all common theme of China's exploit in the full Indo-Pacific. Simply said, non-military method is the key word in this. Look at this map. For example, when we checked China's activity around the Indian Ocean region, I checked one by one and drew it in the map. That is the map. Good map or bad map, you can decide. But anyway, this is made by me. Indeed, China's infrastructure project has a military purpose. We can understand from this map. China wants to safeguard the sea lane of communication, energy route from Middle East to China. But China is worrying. Malacca Strait is influenced by the U.S. Navy. If the U.S. blockades Malacca Strait, China cannot import energy. China cannot continue the trade. That is a weak point. That's why China want to diverse the route. Middle East, Pakistan, and China, or the Middle East, Myanmar, China, or Middle East, the Malay Peninsula, not cross the Malacca Strait, Malay Peninsula, that they try to cross on the land side, because they try to build a port in the Indian Ocean side and South China Sea side, both. And they connect the two ports and cross the Malacca Strait, cross the Malay Peninsula instead of the crossing the Malacca Strait. And this route connects to the Cambodia and go to north to China. They try to develop this route. So this infrastructure project is not a project to support these regional countries. This infrastructure project has a military purpose. They need to diverse the energy route, energy import route. And that's why they built it, they invested. And this invest project has a high interest rate. So for example, the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka cannot return their debt because high interest rate creates a debt. And Sri Lanka cannot return. They need 400 years to return. That's why the Sri Lanka gives China to control this Hambantota port for 99 years. So this is one kind of imperialism, but 21st century. So China's infrastructure project has a strategic aspect, military aspect in this case. That's why this is one of the features of the China's territory expansion. So if Japan forms a Quad, how to deal with it? Is it effective? I try to explain. Firstly, the Quad can do the opposite of what China wants. For example, if the Quad country, four countries gather and respect rule-based order, China's claim could be baseless. Because China say this is their territory, but if the other countries do not admit it, China cannot take it. Maintaining military balance is very important. If Quad country cooperate, four countries cooperate, and China need to deal with four countries at the same time, China cannot concentrate their military budget, military expenditure on one side. For example, if the East China Sea and India-China border both are front of China, China need to divide their military expenditure to two sides, Japan side and Indian side. That's why maintaining military balance, to maintain military balance, this Quad is useful to diverse the military expenditure. And especially if the Quad country, all of the Quad country possess offensive capability, China cannot ignore the countries. For example, this table indicates for a long time Japan's strategy is defensive defense, but now Japan start to change this strategy to including offensive defense, even if they're limited. So Japan extends the range of missile. Indeed, this move is not only Japan's move. Australia tried to extend the range of the missiles, and Australia modified the submarine with the Tomahawk cruise missile. And India also developing long-range cruise missiles. Why all of these countries developed long-range strike capability at the same time? Because if the Quad country, all of the Quad countries possess strike capability, China cannot ignore these countries. Even if China decides to invade India, China needs to share some certain amount of the military forces or budget against Japan, even if Japan is located the completely other side of India. So that's why Quad can work to maintain military balance. And if these four countries possess strike capability, it will be effective. And indeed, I skipped this figure. Why? But I will explain from now. Is indeed, in the Indo-Pacific, by using the Quad, we try to make the new kind of the security framework. What kind of framework? Indeed, in this region, for a long time, the hub and spoke system maintains the security. What is a hub and spoke system? U.S. ally with Japan, US ally with Australia, US ally with Philippines, US ally with Thailand, etc., etc. Based on this bilateral alliance, US take charge, US collect all information from these allies, and if something problem has happened, US take charge. This is the system of the hub and spoke. So this is the system rely heavily on the United States, and it has worked in this region. But now China is catching up the United States, even if the US spent 3 times bigger military expenditure than China, but China is catching up, and China, the attitude has very provocative against a country around China. That's why we need new system, and in this case, the network-based system we are trying. In the hub and spoke, Japan and Australia ally of the United States, but Japan and Australia is not an ally. So that's why all of the information comes to the United States. But in the new network-based system, Japan and Australia also cooperate each other. US ally and ally cooperate each other. Japan and India cooperate each other. Japan, Australia, India cooperate each other. UK, France, Italy, or other US allies also cooperate each other. Japan is planning to start a joint fighter jet project with the British and Italy. This is US ally and ally cooperation. So, based on this network, these allies share the security burden with the United States. In the past, heavily dependent on US only. But now we share each other and share the security burden. That's why, compared with the past, this network-based system is stronger than the hub and spoke. And in this case, in the Indo-Pacific region, Quad is the key. Quad is a group of the great powers in the Indo-Pacific, except China. So this is the key. That's why Quad is important to maintain military balance in this region. So Quad should do the opposite. What China won't, I explain. Third one is non-military policy. Non-military policy. I have already explained. China's infrastructure project has a military purpose. So, but to deal with, what should we do? For example, Quad can cooperate to start infrastructure project. Why, for example, why Sri Lanka accept China's project, even if the interest rate was very high? Finally, Sri Lanka need to give to China the right to control Hambantota port they built by using China's investment. Why Sri Lanka accept such kind of the high-risk infrastructure project? Because there was no alternative project. That's why Quad should work together and suggest alternative project that can work. So non-military policy is very important. And indeed, this is very important. China's threat is threat of money. Because China is rich, China can modernize their military very rapid pace. Because China is rich, China can invest in infrastructure project. So China is rich. That is a problem. That's why the non-military area of the counter-China strategy is very important. For example, the U.S. imposed a very high interest. There was a trade war between U.S. and China, and that had started in the Trump administration. But the Biden administration continued this policy. Why? Because this economic aspect is very important to deal with China, to touch China's income. China's source of power is investment towards the technology and supply chain. Why supply chain technology is not directly the military issue? This is dual use. But to deal with China, these dual or non-military policy is a key issue to deal with China. Because China is rich, because China is powerful, that's why China can change the military balance and expand territories. China's attitude is too arrogant because they are rich and they are powerful. So that's why power-related issue, non-military issue, is very important. And Quad can collaborate. Each country is smaller than China, except the United States. But if they cooperate, this country is more powerful than China. This is the location of the infrastructure project Japan has done. Indeed, one of the example is interesting example is look at in the Bangladesh. When China suggests the Sonadia port project, Japan suggests the Matabari port project as a counter project. And finally, Bangladesh chooses the Matabari port project. So Japan succeeded. Now Japan needs to build a Matabari port for Bangladesh. That's true. But at the same time, it has succeeded. Japan stopped China's project, which created a debt trap in Bangladesh. So, but non-military aspect is very important. That's why the decoupling or risk diversifying is very important. Yes, it is not easy because the three countries, Japan, Australia, India, China is top 1 or 2 trading partner. So the trade with China is beneficial, but at the same time risky. So in the long run, we need to decouple. 3 countries or 4 countries need to decouple with China. So this is one of the examples. So how many Japanese live in China? Yes, in 2012, more than 140,000 Japanese live in China. But now, but 100,000, nearly 100,000, a little more, but so compare with 2012, 28% to 30% decreased. But during the same period, look at this, Japanese in the United States increased. So in the United States, number of the Japanese are increased. But in China, number of Japanese is decreasing. So this is one of the examples to reform the relation with China. Because China is risky, and China's attitude is too arrogant and provocative. Japan is leaving from China. That's why number of Japanese live in China has decreased, even if the number of Japanese live in the United States has increased. So, as a country, India, Australia also has done well, and the US also has done well. So, I should conclude this presentation. Why we need the Quad? Japan introduced the idea of the Quad as a way to prevent China from dominating the rising Indo-Pacific, and by cooperating with India and Australia, US, but especially focusing on India. And because China's expansion follows a predictable pattern, insisting on the respect for the rule-based order, or maintaining a military balance, or integrating military and non-military policy into an overall strategy, are essential for the Quad to achieve this goal. So that's why now is the time for Quad to do so. And one more thing I need to add. Now, this Quad country cooperate with European country, NATO countries. So indeed, this Quad strategy will be not only the Indo-Pacific strategy or Asian strategy. Now, as a US circle, this is a NATO strategy too. That's what I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I collected some questions in advance, so you will see with my name, but it's like from the public. But send me in advance this question. Like starting from Nancy Shaw, but like it's your colleague and fellow director of International Security Industry Council in Tokyo. So we have some viewers from Tokyo. Okay. Okay, this one also Nancy show about the act between Modi and Abe is a great example of respective soft power appeal of the two countries. So also this one still from Japan. Starting from the questions. It's not 42. How reliable do you believe that U.S. in long-term partner in balancing China in the region? How much is the U.S. relied on, and what will be possible contingency measures in case of U.S. withdrawal from the region?
In my opinion, U.S. is not withdrawing, but U.S. is reforming their military power. Because currently, U.S. need to deploy many areas in the world, in Europe, in Middle East, or even in Central Asia and Indo-Pacific. In this case, U.S. cannot concentrate their military power, even if their military expenditure is 3 times bigger than China's. According to the people in the Sweden think tank, calculate the U.S. military expenditure 3 times bigger than China's in 2020. So that's why yes, U.S. is 3 times stronger than China in the military power. Despite this, why U.S. need to worry? Because U.S. need to take care of the very wider area in the world. So U.S. need to reform their military power, relocate troops or expenditure budget in this case, and or the U.S. need more latest weapons to deal with terrorism and to deal with China. Completely different weapons they need. So that's why U.S. needs the time. U.S. needs power to take charge when the U.S. withdraw from some region. That's why this ally is very important. Even if some certain time, the Japan, Australia, India, or the Saudi Arabia, maybe, or the Israel, or the European allies take charge in each region. In this case, U.S. gets the time to reform their military power. So U.S. can rely on this country, I think, at least some certain time. That is my answer. Sorry, a little too long. Thank you.
No. It's very interesting your point of view. Like now, I will start with all the question that is coming also from the public. So how Japan's Russian policy changed after Russian-Ukrainian war in 2022? This question it's because like I'm used to be in Russia for many reasons a lot of times. And for example, the first brands of cars in Russia are for sure Japanese and Korean. Toyota the first, and after you have Kia or whatever. So what changed in the relationship between Japan and Russia after the Russian-Ukrainian war in 2022?
Changing point and maintaining point both like this. In 2040, when Russia annexed Crimea, Japan has already joined the economic sanction against Russia. So in this case, Japan's stance toward Russia is relatively strong, especially in Asia. That's true. But at the same time, this time, Japan's attitude toward Russia is completely different level because Russia's aggression to Ukraine is too provocative. This is really invasion. And another aspect is Russia-China cooperation. In 2040, still Japan wants Russia to leave from, not leave, but take distance a little from China. So then there is a possibility, Japanese believe, if Japan engages with Russia, Russia will not support China fully. But in 2022, Japan gave up this policy because Russia cooperated with China. And if Russia continues to attack Ukraine and fight with, or confront with NATO countries, U.S. cannot withdraw from Europe and relocate their military forces to the Indo-Pacific. In this case, Japan needs to take charge more in the Indo-Pacific. Under such kind of situation, only way Japan can do is cooperate with the U.S. allies and try to share the problem. That's why Japan gave up to cooperate with Russia. and stand with Ukraine and stand side with NATO allies. And so that has happened. And indeed, there was a third reason. Indeed, when we check the history of Japan, you can find Japan has a war with Russia, and especially after the World War II, there are plenty of the war crime. Compare with United States, Russia's occupation is not Russia, the Soviet Union in this case, but the Soviet Union's occupation was very harsh and brutal. So that's why we remember this history. And so that's why, so when we see the situation in the Bucha or situation in the many areas of Ukraine, we can remember what has happened against Japan in that time. So that's why Japan is standing with Ukraine, because we remember how brutal Russia was. But that is the answer.
Perfect. So next one, more economical. Do you think that Trans-Pacific Partnership (TPP) could be accelerated after the 2022 Russia-Ukrainian war and Taiwan-China crisis?
Trans-Pacific Partnership has already started, and so accelerate or not, it is not easy to define. But anyway, TPP is useful. Originally, TPP is economic framework. In my presentation, I explained how important the non-military aspect of the counter-China strategy. And in this case, Trans-Pacific Partnership is a good effort to create a new market instead of rely on the market in China. So that's why creating new market, TPP is useful. But at the same time, TPP has some weak point. Because of the rule is very strong, strict. That's why after the U.S. leave from the TPP, U.S. cannot rejoin the TPP. And so that's why U.S. start plan the new economic framework, which is IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. And indeed, this economic framework, as a counter strategy, three things is needed. Three things is the first one is excluding China, because this is counter-China strategy. But second one is including the United States, because US is a very big market, and this is the market of the United States. And third one is including India, because India could be the potential market to counter China. This size is similar with China as a market. When we check the population, same size. So that's why, view from these three, indeed, the TPP fulfill only one, excluding China. But the other two, not including the United States, not including India. This is a weak point. That's why, indeed, TPP and IPF both are needed in the long run. So that's why TPP is accelerated. That's true. I think that's true. This is very useful. But at the same time, we need IPF too. So this economic framework is very useful to counter China's income.
Perfect. Still returning to the situation of before about like also Kuril Island and whatever. What is the actual position of Japan's government about Kuril Islands dispute with Russia? And what is the state of Japan and Russia World War II peace negotiation?
Okay, so Japan surrendered in the August 15. But Soviet Union start to invade Japan after that. In the continental side, August 9, they start to invade, but this Kuril Island, Northern Territory we call, Soviet Union invade this area after August 15. This means that this is illegal occupation. So Russia must return this territory to Japan because this is illegal. But currently, this territory, the strategic aspect of this, the strategic importance of this territory has risen. Right? Because in the climate change or not, I'm not an expert, but in the Arctic, the sea route is opening. This means that this sea route, safeguard of this sea route will be the matter. And this sea route is running just side of this northern territory. So if Russia set up a military base in the Kuril Island, yes, this is important to safeguard their sea lane. And indeed, Sea of Okhotsk is surrounded by the Russian continent or Kamchatka Peninsula and the northern territories. Indeed, this Sea of Okhotsk is very important for the nuclear strategy of Russia. Russia had a nuclear submarine with a ballistic missile in the Sea of Okhotsk, and they can launch these missiles against the United States. So, but to protect this nuclear submarine, they want to deploy the military force around the Sea of Okhotsk. And if the northern territory, the Russia return to Japan, and if the United States can cross this sea route to enter the Sea of Okhotsk, Sea of Okhotsk will be vulnerable. So nuclear submarine is under threat. That's why, indeed, Russia thinks this area is very important militarily, and that's why there's a few possibility Russia will return this territory to Japan, even if it's illegal. But that is the current situation.
Another one in the same area. We heard that Japan is planning to continue on the Sakhalin LNG project. Is there any risk of USA forcing Japan to abandon the investment as they did with Nord Stream 2 with Germany?
I do not think that this is a risk of the US pressure. There is a risk that Russia will receive the money and will not return. That will be the risk. So US pressure is not a risk. US and Japan cooperate very well. And in case of the Sakhalin-2, if Japan continue to take, there is a risk that Russia will take all of the investment from Japan, and Japan cannot get anything. But why Japan try to maintain this Sakhalin-2? Because Japan's perception, if Japan abandons the right to use Sakhalin-2, China will take it. And China will use it permanently. In this case, will it beneficial for Japan? This is a question. So Japan is facing the dilemma. If Japan abandons the Sakhalin-2, China will take it and increase their power. Yeah, but Japan maintains the Sakhalin-2, the Russia will take it all benefit. That is Japan's dilemma currently.
Perfect. Another one from still is not 42. Don't you think economic decoupling and pursuit of bloc national autarky increase the likelihood of confrontation rather than improving security?
Decoupling, yes, decoupling itself is anyway, the U.S.-China or Japan-China situation will deteriorate it in the near future, I think, because of China's attitude, because China is challenging the current rule-based order, and the U.S. side and Japan side got a benefit under the current rule-based order, but China do not think this is beneficial. So China is challenging now. Under such kind of situation, decouple or not is not the main factor to escalate the situation. Decoupling is just risk diversifying. In the future, the situation will deteriorate it. Under such kind of situation, if Japan fail or US fail to risk diversifying policy, economy of this country will be the passenger of the sinking ship. That's why we need to do. So this is a reactive and defensive policy, and not promoting the conflict or confrontation, I think.
Another one that is very interesting, but it's still sent before the stream. If you can express your opinion and argumentate a little bit about Spratly Island dispute, because a lot of Western don't know nothing about Spratly Island. Why are them so important for China, Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Vietnam?
Okay. if I am the military planner of China, it is a little understandable because source of China's power, rising power, is the city in the coastal area, and they want to protect it. To protect it, they want to set up the defense line in front of these coastal cities. East China Sea, Taiwan, and South China Sea is the area they want to set up the defense line. They want to exclude all of the foreign military ship or military airplane outside of this area, and want to deploy the nuclear missile, Dutch nuclear missile ballistic submarine. In this case, no one want to take a risk of the nuclear war. That's why this area will be secured. But to achieve this goal, China tried to push the other country too much, I think. This is arrogant because excluding Vietnam ship, Philippine ship, Malaysian ship, was pushing Taiwan too much, or excluding Japan from the Senkaku Island. China hasn't claimed this is their territory. So in the past, so this attitude itself is a little too rude, too arrogant, I think. So that's why this is we need to resist it. And once China set up a sacred area for the nuclear ballistic missile submarine, no one wants to take the risk of the nuclear war. That's why this fortress will be secured. So that's why before China deploys this ship, we need to enter the area and detect where the Chinese submarine, and China cannot hide the nuclear ballistic missile submarine. That is needed. That's why we cannot withdraw from this region, even if China want to push out these foreign naval ships and airplanes. That is what happened in all of the East China Sea, Taiwan, and South China Sea, I think. And we need to resist.
Got it. Another one still about Quad, because there is some, let's say, uncertain position about some members. Like, is it possible that opposing alliance such as BRICS and Quad could create misunderstanding at the level of international politics? Like that India is in both Quad and BRICS. So it's like it's with Japan in one alliance, and in another one it's with China and Russia. What is your opinion?
In case of the difference between Japan and India, it's cultural based, I think. Japan's culture, we like the clear position. So we decide the side. If we decide the US side, our loyalty toward the US is very strong. In case of India, India is a newcomer. The relation with the United States is quite new. After last 30 years, yes, they start to improve the relation with the United States. But this is new relation, and at the same time, in the India's culture, for example, to get the taxi, they negotiate with many at the same time, and finally they decide one. So they will not use a taxi in this case. They will decide finally, but they negotiate very long time. Under such kind of situation, it is understandable the India's attitude to negotiate with many at the same time. They are choosing the taxi, and which taxi is good, they are choosing. But viewed from the strategic situation, it is clear that Quad is most beneficial for India, because the BRICS cannot deal with the threat of China. While the framework of the economy is also cannot deal with the threat of China. India shares the land border with China, and this is a very traditional problem for India last 70 years. So that's why India cannot escape the threat of China. So that's why India can negotiate with many, but the final decision is very clear. Japan, US, Australia is the best choice for India. So that's why we rely on India, and I think India is a reliable partner.
So
is the proper answer of this question?
no. It's yes. It was like the very interesting to understand why like it's the best choice like for India to stay like with Quad instead of economical gain in the BRICS. But it's like the question that the answer that I was expecting. So another one. I think we will collect the last 3-4 question, fast question, and then. Just to stay like in a format that it's less than 1 hour, 5 minutes. What is the difference between rule-based international order and law-based international order, and why is more desirable one than the other?
Okay, a little. Okay, so maybe this questioner want to compare the international foreign policy and domestic policy. In foreign policy and domestic policy, there is a difference. In the domestic policy, there are two organizations to maintain the rule-based order or law-based order: the judiciary system and the police force. In the international system, even if there is a judiciary system, there is no police. Indeed, of course, each country has armed forces, and they can punish if something has happened as a collective defense. But this is not a real police force. So in the international system, indeed, when we talk about rule-based order, who makes the rule is the key point. And who makes the rule and who maintains the rule-based order. And if some country commit one kind of crime, who punish it or who executes the verdict of the judicial system in the international politics. So in this case, the difference between the domestic policy and the international policy is the rule-based order in the international policy or law-based order in the domestic policy. There is a legitimacy police or not. It's a big difference. And in this case, which world is better for many countries is the matter. Under current situation, China is challenging the current international rule. And is this beneficial for the United States, Japan, Australia, or India, or other many countries? That is a matter. And if China force the other country by using the military, like Russia, is it beneficial? Is it good for the many countries in the world? We do not think so. That's why this rule-based order, it looks like a law-based order in the domestic policy, but still there is no perfect police force in the world.
That it's like internal Japan question. I don't know nothing about it. So, what could be the impact of a unification church scandal on Japanese government and the possibility of a new election?
A new election will not happen, but because this scandal will not make a good situation for the governmental party. So this means that the governmental party do not have the will to start a new election. But this unification church scandal, what is problem is not clearly. Because there are plenty of the groups or some religion-based groups involved in the policies. That's true. But at the same time, the image of the unification church was not so good for the many Japanese. That's why this was a scandal. This is a scandal currently. But what kind of influence this unification church impact the real policy? We need to check carefully. So after that, we will identify what is the real problem of this relation between the governmental party and the Unification Church. And indeed, Unification Church has a connection with not only the governmental party, but also the opposition party too. So why only the matter is governmental party is a little controversial. So we need to identify carefully what kind of influence this church to the real policy when they have the relation with the governmental party. That is a very important matter, and we need to identify before we start to talk about this scandal. That is my opinion.
I have my last question from that I collected before. Then I will ask to the people if there is any other question from the live public. So this one on the 4th of August 2022, China conducted precision missile strikes after the Nancy Pelosi visit to Taiwan in the ocean near Taiwan, of which 5 missiles landed in the Japan economic exclusive zones. Could this episode to exacerbate the spirits of the Japanese government, like in the confrontation with China?
I think this incident raised Japan's motivation to protect Taiwan, I think. Indeed, for a long time, the Japanese live in the peaceful situation, and that's why the Japanese forgot how to fight. There is no mood. But when China launched a missile, and this missile landed within the EEZ of Japan, Japan started to understand the threat is very near. And the Taiwan crisis is Japan's crisis. That's why this kind of provocation rise the motivation in Japan, not decrease the motivation in Japan. So China intendedly provoked Japan because recently the Japan-Taiwan relation is promoting very well, and especially China. So when China set up exercise zone, Japan side has already identified part of the exercise zone is within the EEZ of Japan. So that's why this is precision strike, intended one. So this is not accident. So that's why yes, Japan has prepared. But for the common audience in Japan, yes, this is one of the evidence. The Taiwan crisis is Japan's crisis. So the more China increase the tension in Taiwan crisis and provoke Japan-Taiwan relation will promote, and U.S. Taiwan-Japan cooperation will be strengthened very well. So that has happened after the China's exercise in August.
There was like one user that wanted to ask something, but it was like still about Kuril Island, the first ever border demarcation treaty between Russian Empire and Empire of Japan specifically mentioned that Japan holds no ownership of the Sakhalin Island and Kuril Island. So Russia claim it. If you know something about it, but
this is a misperception of the question, I think. Because in case of Sakhalin, a little controversial. In the some certain of the Japanese say this is yes, Japan hasn't abandoned it, but in case of Kuril Island, it is clear that Japan hasn't abandoned it. So this claim itself question a mistake fact.
Okay, last question, and then we will close the streams of today. And so I will thank you in advance for your time. Is there any change in attitude towards nuclear energy in Japan since Fukushima disaster?
Yes, of course. After the incident has happened in the Fukushima, after the earthquake, of course, people are worrying the risk of the nuclear plant. But at the same time, currently, Russia's aggression to Ukraine, Japan starts to rethink how important the nuclear energy is. Because we need to import resources from Russia under such kind of situations. But Russia invade Ukraine and Japan do not want to buy the resources from Russia. Under such kind of situation, what kind of choice Japan has? Nuclear energy. So nuclear energy, importance of the nuclear energy has recognized in Japan. So currently, people start to understand how important nuclear energy is. That is the answer. But after Fukushima, yes, people feel afraid the risk of the nuclear plant. That's true. That was
perfect. No, it's the same, I think, in Europe. The same situation. Italy renounced by nuclear energy after Chernobyl disaster with a referendum in 1989. But at the moment, also Germany, that was closing their nuclear plants at the end of the year, postponed the closing for the problem of the import of the gas from Russia. And so it will be an interesting issue also in the next streams about energy. We will have some expert also about it. So at this moment, I wanted to thank you for your time. Thank to the public for the questions that you sent to Dr. Satoru Nagao from Japan. So I hope to see you also in Italy for our school if we will manage to organize it in April. And if the public from after the live will want to send some other questions about the geopolitics in Asia or Japan or whatever, just put it in the comment. And thank you for your time, and see you in the next streams. Remember to subscribe to the channel and to like the video. Thank you so much to everybody. Ciao.